Today on CFTK-TV, Canada is preparing to combat against U.S. tariffs. Chrystia Freeland's campaign speech sees a number of undercover protesters, and hostages are now being released in Israel and Palestine.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Hello, I'm Damien Smith, and thank you for joining us here on CFTK-TV. We begin today with the news from down south, where Donald Trump was sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. Serving his second term, his speech clocked in at about 31 minutes. Here are some of the comments addressing borders and international relations for the United States.
The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first. From this moment on, America's decline is over. To the Black and Hispanic communities, I want to thank you for the tremendous outpouring of love and trust that you have shown me with your vote. We set records, and I will not forget it. Today is Martin Luther King Day, and his honor, this will be a great honor, but in his honor we will strive together to make his dream a reality. We will make his dream come true. Today I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came.
Among other things, Trump also prepared a January 6th pardon list from 2021, where the president called it a day of love, and he could issue pardons for almost 700 of those who rioted. Additionally, Trump said that California should have been a win for him in this past election, and that he plans to take back the Panama Canal as well. In local news, the city of Prince Rupert was hit with a hefty fine from the BC Ministry of Environment and Climate Change due to an apparent cases of non-compliance at several waste disposal sites. The Wantage Road landfill, Sewer Outfalls, and Ridley Island landfill were all fined for not meeting the standards that were set in the provincial permits required to operate a landfill in British Columbia. As a result, Prince Rupert has been ordered to pay a total of $165,000 in fines. The city states that they have been aware of potential penalties due to a combination of issues related to infrastructure and climatic conditions, and they say they have been actively engaging with the Ministry of Options to address these issues. They also stated that they will be working with the ministry to try and reduce penalties and work towards compliance. Moving on to federal news, ever since tariffs really started to become a topic of conversation just about 2 months ago, the federal government has now implemented their three-step plan to prepare for a possible trade rift between Canada and the United States. Here's Jeremy Charon over in Ottawa.
As Washington welcomes Donald Trump back to the White House for a second term Monday, Canada will be watching and waiting for what could be the beginning of a trade war with Trump's America.
Regardless of the decision that President-elect Trump makes when he is inaugurated, Canada will be ready.
Speaking with Vashi Kapelos on CTV's Question Period, Canada's Transport and Internal Trade Minister says Canada is ready to respond with retaliatory measures.
We will use all tools in our toolbox to ensure that we're protecting Canadian workers and Canadian industry.
Trump has pledged an executive order on day one to impose an across-the-board tariff of 25% on all Canadian imports. Canada says it has already planned a three-phased response ready to roll out as early as Monday, which it says, as America's largest export market, would have a massive impact.
If pushed, our response will be the single largest trade blow the U.S. economy has ever endured.
According to a senior government source with close knowledge on the file, no one from the incoming administration has explicitly said what Canada can expect as of day one of Trump's presidency.
Either way, this needs to be a wake-up call for Canada. Our economy is at risk.
And while the government has indicated its response could eventually include tariffs on a list of imports worth more than $100 billion, experts suggest Canada's economy is simply too vulnerable.
Even if Trump doesn't immediately follow through, that risk remains. And so we need to figure out how to make our economy more resilient and more stable to weather these kinds of threats.
And moving on to the U.S. perspective of tariffs over in Washington, local businesses are preparing for tariffs to affect their own business, as a fair amount of products that they sell on a daily basis are still manufactured here in Canada. Here's Joy Malvin with CTV News.
Canadian brand. This one here, that's from Canada as well.
When it comes to feeding Charlie and Harvey, these pet parents have long trusted this beloved supply store in Washington, D.C.
Good job, baby.
Also is a Canadian company.
For 20 years, Julie Paez has carried only the very best for canines and cats, including popular lines imported from Canada.
They have very strict standards as far as the ingredients go and how the animals are treated. So that's one reason that we do like Canadian foods.
And when it comes to food, leashes, dog beds, and yes, even toys, if Donald Trump's threatened tariffs on imported goods go through...
Right now, if a dog bed is at $150 and you're looking at spending well over $200 for that same item, given tariffs coming in, consumers are going to think twice.
Paez says she has no choice but to pass that added cost on to her customers. So what would she say to Donald Trump?
I don't believe there's anything I could possibly say. He's going to do what he's going to do, regardless of the hurt that it's going to cause a lot of people.
Across the border in Canada, human food is also about to take a hit.
We have U.S. packaging and Canadian packaging.
Healthy Crunch in Ontario specializes in non-allergen snacks. No nuts, no dairy, just the good stuff.
Every night I'm like, fingers crossed that's not going to happen. It's kind of a scary time right now for entrepreneurs.
Her worry? She could be hurt twice. She sometimes imports raw ingredients from America, and if U.S. tariffs come in and Canada retaliates in a tit-for-tat dispute, it's a double whammy. All of it at a time when she's trying to grow her business in America.
It's going to make our products more expensive. Every penny counts. Every consumer is under strain right now.
Just two small businesses that could be caught in a trade war worth hundreds of billions of dollars, and everyone bracing themselves for Trump's tariffs that are expected to bite.
Thank you.
Joy Malvin, CTV News, Washington.
Back to local news. After being in operation since 1952, the Bank of Montreal's branch located in Kitimat will now only be active for a few more months. On July 25th, the bank location will be closing down permanently, despite there not being many publicly provided reasons why BMO as to why this closure is happening. Members of the Bank of Montreal living in Kitimat will likely have some crucial decisions to make in the near future, as the next closed branch is located in Terrace, which is about a 40-minute drive away. Although BMO customers will still have the ability to access the bank services through local ATMs. Coming up next, Chrystia Freeland's speech gets a number of interruptions from protesters. Welcome back. Well, just this past weekend, Chrystia Freeland made a sizable appearance for the Liberal Party as she looks to continue her campaign, and her speech had quite a number of interruptions. Colton Prale from CTV News has more back in Ottawa.
I am so glad to be here at the St. Albans Boys and Girls Club today.
At the launch of her Liberal leadership campaign, Chrystia Freeland could hardly get a word in.
Look, we are not going to let anyone disrupt our democracy.
But disrupt they did. For 30 minutes, protesters criticized her support of Israel, calling for a complete weapons embargo against the country. Over a dozen were kicked out, and police were on scene. Sources close to the campaign tell CTV News the launch hoped to frame Freeland as a fighter ready to take on Trump's tariff threat.
If I am Prime Minister, Canada will never back down.
Her decision to lean into that and really frame her candidacy as fighting for Canada, I think is really clear and is one that allows her not to necessarily talk about her experience in the Trudeau government.
But Freeland is backing away from some Trudeau policies, like the consumer carbon tax. At another Liberal launch today, a very different answer. Karina Gould says she'll scrap the April 1st increase if she becomes Liberal leader, but the carbon tax isn't going anywhere.
I'm a mother who has to live in this economy. I'm a person who understands what Canadians are going through.
Meanwhile, Mark Carney is picking up more support from Cabinet. This weekend, 3 Liberal ministers announced they're backing the former banker, including Melanie Joly.
I think there's a lot of affection and a lot of respect for Karina Gould, but she'll have to prove that she can crack that top-tier candidate.
We are very committed.
With Gould and Freeland having spent extensive time in Trudeau's cabinet, the Conservatives are working fast to tie them to the Prime Minister, highlighting their past support for the carbon tax in a campaign with the tagline, "Just like Justin."
Now we take a look at your local weather forecast for tonight and the upcoming week. For tonight's forecast, the Prince Rupert area should have cloudy conditions with a 40% chance of showers, winds from the south at 20 kilometers per hour, increasing to 40 at times, becoming lighter later in the evening. The temperature should be steady around 2 degrees. In the Terrace and Kitimat region, it should also be cloudy with a 40% chance of flurries. Wind should be from the south at 20 kilometers per hour, increasing to 40 at times as well. The temperature should be around -3 with a wind chill of -9. Finally, the Bulkley Valley should also be cloudy with a 30% chance of flurries, which should clear up near midnight. There should be light winds at 15 kilometers per hour with a low of -16 and a wind chill of -20 overnight. Moving on to your weekly weather forecast, the Prince Rupert area should see warmer temperatures up until Friday, where a sunnier day will see a 3-degree drop. There are chances of flurries this week, but expect a mix of sun and showers. The high will be 7 degrees on Wednesday and Thursday, while the low will be -2 on Friday night. The Terrace and Kitimat region should have chances of flurries and snow, with cloudier conditions for the next few days, followed by sunnier weather going into the weekend. The high will be 0 degrees tomorrow and Wednesday, while the low will be -6 on Friday night. The Bulkley Valley will have a sunny week with chances of flurries over the next 36 hours, but will mostly have a mix of sun and cloud. The high will be -1 on Wednesday and Friday, while the low will be -12 on Friday night. Now we take a look at your Northwest Roadside Report. For more updates, make sure to check out drybc.ca. Highway 16 has slippery sections throughout. Highway 37 also has slippery sections. Compact snow from Cranberry Junction to the Yukon border. Highway 37A has slippery sections with compact snow. The Nishka Highway has slippery sections throughout. Telegraph Creek Road also has slippery sections with compact snow. And these are what the roads were looking like around here in the Northwest. Still to come, what the future holds for TikTok in the United States just after a brief ban of the app. Hello again. Well, on Friday, the Supreme U.S. Court upheld a law passed by Congress to ban the app of TikTok. However, the app is back to being available in the United States, but the story is not expected to end just there, with Donald Trump being sworn in as president just today. Here's Alex Carpa of CTV News.
170 million American TikTok users were shown this message Sunday morning, telling them that TikTok was not available.
I'm putting these water bottles to the test.
But TikTok said Sunday it was beginning to restore service to its users in the U.S. President-elect Donald Trump said he would revive TikTok access in the U.S. by executive order after he is sworn in on Monday, saying he would most likely give the company a 90-day reprieve from the ban.
We have no choice. We have to save it. A lot of jobs. We don't want to give our business to China. We don't want to give our business to other people.
Donald Trump can't make the law itself go away, but what he can do is buy the company more time.
Trump, however, wants the app to be at least half owned by American investors, and several potential names have come forward to invest in TikTok, including Kevin O'Leary and Elon Musk.
Even if a deal can be brokered, it might not be the same technology or the same company.
Can you believe this is a jacket?
TikTok influencer Jess McKay preemptively saved over 500 of her videos in anticipation. She was able to gain access to her secondary account on TikTok, but was still unable to access her main account, which holds her largest following.
It's a lot of smaller people like myself, under 100,000 followers, who do make a full-time living doing it. And this is the sort of in-between time where we see how can you recreate yourself and reimagine yourself and find those people again.
Although the app is now restored and users in Canada were unaffected, many are uncertain of the future of TikTok and flock to other competitors like Chinese-owned social site Rednote, which topped the charts of Apple and Google's app stores this past week. Alex Carpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
A recent report from the Prince Rupert Port Authority revealed that a total of 23.1 million tons of cargo made its way through the Prince Rupert Port in 2024, although that number was actually a decrease from 2023, albeit a very slight one of only 1%. The report also said that performance was impacted by several factors, like a pair of labor disruptions, carriers' trans-Pacific trade routes being realigned, and a rail service suspension that occurred due to a wildfire. And now we take a look at the stock market, where we have a mix of everything today. The Canadian dollar is up half a penny. The price of gold is down about $17. Oil is down $1. Natural gas is down 12 cents. And aluminum is up $30.50. In Toronto, the TSX is up about 103 points, and the Venture Index is up 2.39. Still ahead, hostages are now being released in Israel and Palestine. Welcome back to our final segment. While ongoing developments are continuing in Gaza and Israel, as hostages on both sides are now being released. Heather Wright from CTV News is now in the area, witnessing the changes that are moving rather quickly.
Surrounded by masked fighters, 3 Israeli hostages rushed to a Red Cross vehicle, the first to be released as part of the ceasefire that went into effect today. Crowds of civilians gathered at the exchange point in Gaza City, cheering and chanting. Finally, inside Israel, Doron Steinbrecher, Emily Damari, and Romy Gunen take their first steps of freedom, reuniting with their loved ones at the hospital after 471 days in captivity. There were cheers at Hostage Square in Tel Aviv as crowds watched the exchange unfold, though much uncertainty remains with nearly 100 hostages still in Gaza.
It's a long road ahead. It's bittersweet. I mean, it's hopefully the first of many.
The 3 women will be assessed and treated at the hospital. While officials say none of them require urgent care, this photo shows Emily Damari missing 2 fingers on one of her hands. In the occupied West Bank, the first group of Palestinians were released from Israeli jails after midnight. Authorities in Israel warning people in East Jerusalem and the occupied West Bank not to publicly celebrate their loved ones' return. That didn't stop crowds from gathering near the jail, cheering and setting off fireworks. 90 prisoners were released today, mostly women and teenage boys. Nearly 2,000 are expected to be freed over the first phase of the truce. Some in jail for simply protesting, others convicted of murder and terrorism. The ceasefire brings a pause to 15 months of fighting, a war that has killed more than 47,000 Palestinians, according to Gaza health officials, and reduced much of the Gaza Strip to rubble. Amal Abu Aita returned to her home today, hoping to find something still standing. Instead, she found it in ruins. We will try to stay here, she says, wondering where her 10 children will sleep, saying there's nowhere else to go. There is much uncertainty in both Israel and Gaza, where Hamas fighters took to the streets in celebration today. There is happiness tinged with trepidation. Agony, says Yitzhar Lifshitz, whose 84-year-old father, Oded, is still in Gaza.
For me, it's just the beginning. I know it's going to be cruel, ugly, but we have to start to deal with it.
Police in Dawson Creek said in a statement that they're investigating a drive-by shooting at a home in the city. Mounties say they were called to a home after a report of multiple shots fired at the residence, where a vehicle was seen speeding away afterwards. 2 suspects were then arrested, and police are seeking out a third person who was seen fleeing in a dark pickup truck. And we move on to a story about a boy whose whole life revolved around athletics growing up, until one day a disease took up his vision, leaving him at crossroads on what to do next. Here's Adam Sawatsky from CTV News with our final story of the day.
Ever since he was a kid, James Quinecki's loved athletics.
It's just hardwired in my body. I don't think I could just go a few days without moving my body.
During school, he played every sport he could, and after graduating, found a job to support his pastime.
Make some money, and then I could do my fitness and sports on the side.
His life couldn't have been better, James says, until his vision suddenly got unexpectedly worse.
And then when they sent me to the ER, that was a bit of a curveball.
The then 21-year-old was diagnosed with a rare eye disease, and just 6 months after one eye was sort of getting fuzzy, James was almost completely blind in both eyes.
It was terrible. I had no idea what I was going to do.
Everything James used to do, which defined him, fueled him, and provided community, he now couldn't do. But then, James heard about blind baseball.
It was awesome. It was so much fun. Kind of propelled me into getting into other sports.
It inspired James to go to university and join the varsity rowing team.
It was tough. It was hard. I spent a lot more time in the water than I was in the boat.
But James persevered and did so well. He started training with the National Paralympic team.
The momentum, sparked more motivation.
It gave James the confidence to look for a sport that would provide some of the autonomy he'd lost, which he found in running.
I can just go run. Nothing's gonna stop me.
After finding routes that were safe and usually wearing a vest that says blind runner, James runs by himself almost daily. He's also completed more than a few marathons.
Just you're on top of the world.
Although nothing compares to the feeling of proposing to your partner and them saying yes.
It does get better. It does get easier.
And although life does take unexpected turns, James says if you can commit to forge your own path, you'll find you couldn't be happier with the direction you're headed.
Once you can achieve that, you can achieve anything.
Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, Victoria.
That'll be all for tonight's cast. Thank you very much for tuning in, and have a good night.